What does it do to a person when they grow up feeling like the less favored one? When no matter what you bring, it never seems to be enough. When your sibling seems to receive what you can't, effortlessly, naturally, without trying. And the people who were supposed to treat you equally somehow always seemed to see them differently. That wound has a name in modern psychology, and it has a face in the Bible. His name was Cain. Most people read the story of Cain and Abel as the story of a murderer. This video is about what Cain was before the murder. Because before he was a killer, he was a child, and then a young man, carrying one of the most painful experiences a person can live through inside a family. The experience of being the one who didn't get chosen. The story begins in Genesis 4. Cain and Abel were brothers, raised in the same home, children of the same parents. Both of them brought an offering to God. Cain brought from what he had grown, produce from the ground. Abel brought the firstborn of his flock, the very best he had, and God regarded Abel's offering, but not Cain's. No explanation, no second chance announced, no words of comfort. Just the visible reality that one brother was received and the other was not. And then comes one of the most quietly devastating phrases in all of Scripture. Cain was very angry, and his face fell. His face fell. Two words that describe a complete emotional collapse. The kind that happens when something you needed, really needed, did not come through. Not just disappointment, not just frustration. The specific collapse of someone who has just had their deepest fear confirmed. That they are not enough. That the one standing next to them, their brother, their equal, their family, is somehow more. Now here is what psychology has to say about this experience. Because what Cain felt in that moment is not ancient. It is happening in families right now. Researchers call it perceived differential treatment. It is what happens when a child grows up believing, correctly or not, that a sibling is favored. Studies show that this perception alone, regardless of whether the favoritism is real or imagined, produces specific and lasting psychological damage. Children who believe they are the less favored sibling show higher rates of depression, lower self-esteem, more intense sibling rivalry, and greater difficulty forming secure adult relationships. The wound is not just about the parent, it is about what the sibling becomes. The sibling who receives what you want stops being just a brother or a sister. They become the mirror of your inadequacy. Every achievement of theirs feels like a comment on yours. Every time they are praised, something in you calculates what that means about you. Psychologists call this the comparison trap within family systems. And it is uniquely painful inside families because you cannot escape it. You cannot unfollow your brother. You cannot avoid the family dinner where he is celebrated again. You are trapped in the comparison, day after day, year after year. And what that does to a person over time is not just emotional, it shapes how they survive. When children feel chronically overlooked within their family, they develop what psychologists call survival adaptations. These are not weaknesses. They are intelligent responses to an environment that feels unsafe. The first adaptation is overperformance. The child works harder, achieves more, becomes more, hoping that eventually the gap will close, that eventually the offering will be accepted. Cain was a farmer. He worked the ground. Abel was a shepherd. And on the day it mattered most, the difference was not effort, it was outcome. And no amount of future effort would undo what that moment felt like. The second adaptation is withdrawal. The child stops trying. If the offering is never going to be enough, why keep making it? This looks like disengagement, like not caring. But underneath it is a child who cared so much that they cannot afford to keep caring. The third adaptation is resentment that redirects. When the pain of feeling overlooked has nowhere to go, when it cannot be expressed to the parent, when it cannot be processed, it turns sideways. It lands on the sibling. Because the sibling is visible. The sibling is present. The sibling is the one who has what you don't. This is what happened to Cain. His pain had nowhere to go. His parents do not appear anywhere in the text during his crisis. God stepped in, but by then the resentment had already built a body. It had a direction. It had a plan. Here is what the Bible and the psychology reveal together. The most dangerous wounds in adult life are often not the ones from strangers. They are the ones from inside the family. Because the family was supposed to be the place where you were seen unconditionally. When it becomes the place where you feel less than, where your sibling seems to represent everything you are not, the damage goes somewhere very deep. Family therapists call this the sibling wound. It shows up decades later. It shows up in the adult who cannot celebrate a friend's success without a sting of pain. It shows up in the person who overworks, over-explains, over-prepares, trying to finally bring the offering that gets accepted. It shows up in the one who walks away from relationships the moment they sense they are not the favorite. Cain walked into a field and did something that could not be undone. Most people don't do that. But most people who carry an unprocessed sibling wound do something quieter. They carry it forward, into every room they walk into every relationship they form. And they keep waiting, without knowing they are waiting, for someone to finally choose them. So if any part of this story lives in you, here are 3 things that matter. First, name the wound for what it is. Not my sibling and I don't get along. Not my family is complicated. If you grew up feeling like the less favored one, if Cain's face falling resonated with something in you, that is worth naming honestly. The sibling wound cannot heal if it stays disguised as something more acceptable. Second, separate then from now. The family you grew up in had a specific dynamic. That dynamic shaped you, but it does not define every room you walk into today. The person who didn't choose you then is not the same as every person who seems to choose someone else now. One of the most important pieces of work in adult life is learning to stop reading the present through the lens of your family's verdict. You are not still standing in that field. Third, grieve it properly. The sibling wound does not heal through anger alone. It heals when you allow yourself to feel what Cain never appeared to feel. The grief underneath the rage. The sadness that comes with accepting that something you needed from your family, you may not have fully received. That grief is not weakness. It is the beginning of the story, not being about them anymore. If this connected with something in your own family experience, I want to hear it. Drop a comment below and tell me, did you ever feel like the Cain in your family? You don't have to share the details. Even just saying yes means something. If this kind of content reaches you, where biblical stories are examined through the lens of psychology, subscribe. And the next video looks at Joseph, a man who had 11 brothers who hated him enough to sell him into slavery, and what that kind of family betrayal actually does to a person's brain. I will see you there.